Welcome back to Podcast Recovery, everyone. We're your hosts, David O.
And Eric B.
Today, we are joined by our special guest, Sean, S-E-A-N. How are you doing today, Sean?
I'm not too bad. How you guys doing?
Doing well, man.
Good.
Doing well.
Good.
Where are you from, Sean?
I am originally from Florida, but for the past 8 years, I've been living in Philly.
Oh, all right.
Right up the road.
Yeah, you're in our neck of the woods. You're not too far. We're right below Baltimore, so. All right. Huh.
Okay.
Yeah. So, when were you first introduced to recovery?
I was first introduced to it in 2009.
Mm-hmm.
I had got some trouble, and I had to go to. I ended up in a rehab facility, and I had to go to AA meetings for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I did not take it seriously, though. I was very much in denial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Things got, I think I was sober for maybe, 5 or 6 months, and then I took right off again.
Yep. Tale as old as time.
I've been in and out of the rooms for since then, and this time it's stuck.
All right. And how long have you been sober?
I have been sober for the 8th will be 19 months.
Fantastic.
I think I did my.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
All right. Well, without further ado, we're going to turn it over to you to share your story with us. So take it away.
Okay, thanks. So, let's see. I'll just at the beginning. I grew up in a small town in Florida. I had, I've kind of compared where I grew up to, if you've ever seen American Beauty, it's a nice neighborhood, but once you individual houses, you see all the little problems going on.
Oh, yeah.
I did not get along with my father at all. We hated each other for we always have.
Mm-hmm.
At least it seemed that way. From a very young age, I did not feel comfortable in my own skin. I know a lot of people in recovery say that, and I'm no different. I was the type of kid who was, very laid back, very relaxed.
Mm-hmm.
I was into the arts, I was into science, and, I had a father who was very type A personality, very tough love, your stereotypical jock.
Yeah.
That was a source of a lot of tension. And it didn't get any better as I got older. I didn't really, there was always alcohol in the house,
Mm-hmm.
but I never really touched it. I never really took an interest in it. I did notice, however, growing up that normal drinking to me meant, just people getting just absolutely smashed,
Mm-hmm.
which of course later in life, I just thought what I was doing was normal. I thought I was just partying.
Yeah.
I didn't really touch it. I didn't take an interest in it. I think the first time I had, my relatives used to give me, a sip of beer, or every now and then someone would give me scotch. But I didn't really drink until I was about 13 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And
what was your first drink?
My first drink was tequila.
Was what?
Tequila.
Wow. At 13?
Yeah, I was on a school trip, and looking back on it, I don't know if this trip was actually sanctioned by the school, but I was in Mexico City, and I had a roommate who had been held back a few times. He was 16, still in 7th or 8th grade, but he looked older. So he went out, he bought a tequila, came back with a couple people from a school that was traveling with us who were from, I think, Nebraska.
Uh-huh.
And I was asleep, and they woke me up because they're all drunk.
Mm-hmm.
And he asked if I wanted to take a shot, and I wanted to be cool.
Yeah.
So I took it. I hated it. And I think I went to bed right afterwards. It's just I wanted to vomit. But that was my first experience with alcohol, and I didn't like it at all. Even for the next couple of years, I started playing music a lot. I started skateboarding. This is the early 2000s when Tony Hawk was big, so every kid on a skateboard thought he was going to be the next Hawk. And I adopted this straight edge lifestyle. But it stuck for a couple years, and when I was maybe around 16, I decided to try a few things. So I would go to parties occasionally. I met some kids from a different school who I was really interested in, and we liked the same music, and I was very much interested in the girls who went to that school, because they were, at the time, they were the best looking women I had ever seen. So I would go to parties with them, and we'd drink a little bit. But if you had looked at me then, you would just think, oh, he's kind of doing the things that a normal teenager would do.
Yeah.
So I was pretty controlled. I guess I was doing what would be seen as normal. And I got to college, and when I was around 18, I would go to parties. But again, looking back on it, you could see the beginning of a problem, because instead of going out and doing things with my friends on the weekends, I started looking for parties. I would buy a pack of cigarettes, and I would wander campus just looking for a party to go to. And I did that for a couple years. I moved into my first apartment when I was 20, and I had a roommate who was 21, and I used to steal his beer. I would blame it on someone else.
Yeah, of course.
I was still going to parties, but I was still going to class, and I still held down a job. And again, if you looked at me at the time, you would have just thought, oh, he just likes to party. When I turned 21, things got really bad at home. I was going to school in Florida, and at the time, I was only going to school maybe half an hour from where I grew up. And at the time, my parents had moved from Tampa, Florida to Philadelphia. And I guess they started having problems. And this is when the relationship between my father and I got even worse. He'd call me because he got into an argument with my mom, and then he would take it out on me. And I didn't really know how to handle it.
Yeah.
I met, just from the past couple years of partying, I knew where I could find a party.
Yeah.
By the time I was 21, I knew where all the good bars were. So I started to. I took a nosedive right into the deep end. Instead of going to class, I'd wake up and bars there opened up at 11 o'clock. So I'd go into a bar at 11 o'clock, and I'd stay until bars there closed at 3 a.m. So I would just open the bar and close it.
Wow.
I had friends who would do the exact same thing. I started working at this little dive bar. I had gotten laid off from a retail job, and I bounced around. I worked at a grocery store for a little bit, and I worked as a janitor in a synagogue, and I used to if wine was involved in a religious ritual, if there was any left over, I'd sneak some drinks.
Stealing sacramental wine.
Oh yeah, Manischewitz. It's sweet, but yeah,
it's so gross. It's so gross. I drank it. I remember one time in my teenage years, we had a Jewish friend, and we swiped his parents' Manischewitz, and we looked at the alcohol content. And we were like, oh my God, we're gonna get wasted. And 2 sips in, it was just horrible. It tastes so bad.
It's so sweet.
Oh.
But yeah, I ended up working at this little dive bar.
Of course.
That no one really came into. The only people who came in were the regulars, of which I was one.
Yeah, the barflies.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I would just go in there and I'd just drink with the customers who were also my friends. And then a lot of times, well, the owner at this point knew that the bar was going to close. So the owner just stopped caring what we did. Closed the doors at 3 a.m. and we would stay in there until about 5 or 6. We'd go to someone's house afterwards, pass out for a couple hours, and then get up and do it all over again.
Yeah.
Needless to say, you know, I just stopped going to class. But you know, it didn't matter to me. It didn't. Yeah, as long as there was a bar, as long as there was someone to drink with, you know, I didn't care.
Yeah.
But I knew I knew something was wrong. I just didn't want to admit it. And this time, my parents were having more and more problems, and my parents still had a house outside of Tampa that I was living in at the time, and my father would just show up. And we would just argue constantly. So I would just take off for a few days, and I realized that, you know, I couldn't keep that up. And, you know, I never had any money, and I ended up getting a job. Once the bar closed down, I got a job delivering pizzas. So what little money I made from tips, I would just spend at the bar. But I knew something was wrong, and I blamed it on everything but my drinking. So what I decided to do was enlist in the Air Force. Which, yeah, I did. I managed to hold it together. I got through, you know, military processing, made it through basic training, got into the best shape of my life. But the second I got to my first duty station, I was right back out. I mean, I wasn't as bad as I was because I did have, you know, some structure. I had some discipline. I joined when I was 22. Yeah. When I joined, and you know, I didn't take anything seriously. You know, I was more concerned about, you know, let me get the job done during the week. You know, if I have to work the weekends, fine. But all I care about outside of that is you know, drinking and girls. That's all I care about.
Yeah.
So my first year in, I actually did really well, despite going to PT hungover quite a few times. I held it together very well, and it turned out I was really good at my job. So within the first year, I had won a ton of awards. I had gotten commendations from a couple commanders. So I mean, I had something to be proud of, and there was even talk of me getting promoted early. But I screwed all that up when I got a DUI. My blood alcohol content was almost 3 times over the legal limit. I was at a 0.23, and I was walking around talking. I was just fine.
Yeah. Wow.
The Air Force, instead of kicking me out, they actually sent me. I was stationed in California at this time. They sent me to a rehab facility. What was it? I think it was about an hour south of Los Angeles. And I was there for 45 days. And when I came out, I thought, okay, you know, I entertained the idea of having a problem. But I still didn't want to admit it. I would consider it, you know, I would have these moments where I would think, okay, maybe I do have a problem. But then I would think, no, you know what? I'm still in my 20s. This is okay. You know, everyone I saw drinking growing up, they're way worse than I am.
Oh, yeah.
So I managed to stay sober for about 5 or 6 months, and I ended up, I went on leave for a little bit, and I went back to Florida, and I ran into a friend of mine who I've known since 4th grade. And he said, "Hey, let's go to this bar. Let's get a couple drinks." And I thought, you know what? I've done well. I'm not an alcoholic. Fuck it. Let's go for it. Mm-hmm. So we went to this bar. We ended up getting drunk, and then we wandered around the University of Tampa's campus, and we got chased by security, and they wanted to throw us off. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that was about it. But for that evening, but yeah, I went right back into my habit of drinking. Mm-hmm. So I came back to California, and again, I tried to hold it together. I was really good about not drinking during the week. But if I had a long weekend, it was you know what, I'm off to the races. Yeah. And I was very careful about it because my unit had me in this program on base to where I had to talk to a counselor every week. I wasn't allowed to drink. I was also court ordered not to drink. But I was very sneaky about it. So even though my license was suspended, Friday night, instead of drinking on base, I'd go to one of the local bars where I knew no one would be, and I'd have a couple drinks, and then I'd go to a different town and have a couple drinks, and then I managed to do that for a little bit. And then I had gotten myself into a little bit of trouble because I showed up to work one day and I stank. Mm-hmm. And I tried to say it, but they knew that I had been drinking all weekend. I got into even more trouble. We had a long weekend, and I went to a town near base, and I got smashed the first night, and I ended up hanging out with these younger kids who I just took a liking to, and they ended up drugging me and stealing my car.
Whoa!
So, yeah, so of course I have to report that.
Yeah.
So I get back to base, and I get interrogated by three different police units. Mm-hmm. Which is terrifying, by the way. I don't know if you've ever been interrogated by the police, but it's horrifying.
Yes.
But they wanted to know what I was doing, and I'm trying to hide the fact that, I was drinking when I wasn't supposed to be, but everyone knew already. Mm-hmm. So I got put on extra duty, and at this point, I really didn't care. I was also dealing with some issues with depression, because back home we're not well. My parents were getting a divorce. And even though I was in my 20s, you think someone in their 20s would be able to handle that, but I just didn't take it well. Mm-hmm. So I was just constantly trying to escape. But again, I held it together somehow. By some miracle, I finished up my time in the military. I did my 4 years. I got discharged in 2012. And I moved to Philadelphia, where I am now. I moved in with my mom for a little bit. Mm-hmm. When I got out of the Air Force, I had two options. Either I didn't want to stay on the West Coast, and the base was so remote. There were no jobs in the immediate area.
Yeah.
I had a girlfriend at the time who was very sweet, very loving. I'm sure she could have found me a job, but I didn't. I hated the West Coast. Mm-hmm. So my options were to move in with my dad in Tampa or move in with my mom in Philly. And I had been to Philly before, and I remember the first time I came here, I remember walking around and thinking, I want to live here one day. Which, of course, I moved here, and I moved in with mom, and I still had a little bit of money in my bank account. Mm-hmm. And I had no job. So I just thought, well, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to do the same things I was doing, before I joined the military. I'm just going to go to the bar, stay there all day, and then come home. Mm-hmm. And somehow through all of that, I dated a couple girls who liked to party just as much as I did.
Yeah.
And of course, that just turns into a shit show almost immediately.
Yeah.
But I dated around a little bit. I kept partying, even if I didn't have any cash. Somehow, are all alcoholics and addicts charming? Because that's something I've just seemed to notice.
Oh yeah.
Because I would charm girls, and then they'd be paying for my drinks.
It's kind of a catch-22 if you think about it. Like, were we charming before the drugs, or like did the drugs make us charming?
Yeah. I mean, it's a good question. Yeah, that really is. I'll have to ask my current girlfriend now.
Yeah.
You know me when I was. But I would work jobs. I would get a job. I would keep it until I got a paycheck, or maybe at the most I'd keep it for a month and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Get a paycheck, and I would think, oh, I'm set. And then I'd go to the bar, and I'd just never go back to work again. My mom has the patience of a saint, and even though she would get angry with me, she left me alone for a little bit, but then it got too much for her, and she would try to get me to stop or try to get me to slow down.
Mm-hmm.
But we gave each other a lot of space, so I could, and we had completely different schedules, so I could just come and go as I pleased. It was my house too.
Mm-hmm.
But I ended up in a relationship with this girl who I ended up, really caring for, really falling for. And, she was a pretty hard drinker. And that relationship ended up crashing and burning because of something I did.
Mm-hmm.
Now, unfortunately, I'm working the steps, of course, and she is on my amends list, but it ended so badly that we haven't spoken in years, and she wants nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
So I mean, the amends are there to make, but it's just a matter of, if she ever wants to speak to me, those amends will be there.
Yeah.
But I got really depressed after that, and I started thinking about, killing myself, and,
Mm-hmm.
I started drinking more. I ended up locking myself in my room for a good 2 months, 2 or 3 months. It's hard to tell. It's a little hazy.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the time I was just living off of Steel Reserve and anchovy pizza.
Oh God,
So,
that is a horrible diet.
That is a horrible diet. Oh, it is. Yeah.
Oh.
But finally, my mom had a friend over who I'm pretty close with as well, and I came up to drink with them. And, we had a little heart to heart. There was no yelling or anything, but, they both said, we're really worried about you. And I said, you know what? Okay, let me try to let me try to stay sober again. So I found this little clinic that was maybe 2 blocks from the house.
Mm-hmm.
And going there, almost every day. I was in outpatient therapy. The only issue I had with it was, I don't know if they were really, it was a methadone clinic. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if the people there were really used to dealing with an alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very difficult to get a word in to be heard, just because, we'd sit in groups and you'd have one person start talking, and there was a lot of crosstalk.
Yeah.
If you were having a rough day, there was no way you could say it. I found a young person's AA meeting that I really liked, but I stopped going. I stopped all of it because a friend of mine came through town, and I hadn't seen the guys since maybe 10th grade.
Mm-hmm.
So we went and got, and I had 2 drinks with him. And then I remember walking home after that thinking, I really shouldn't get a 40, but I have some extra, in my pocket, and you know what, I deserve this. And at this point, I think I've been sober for maybe a month or two.
Mm-hmm.
So I went and got a 40, and I was just right back out there.
Yeah.
So I did it for a few more years. Mom and I ended up moving to a different neighborhood, and I just went right back to my, the pattern I was used to. Work a couple jobs in the immediate area, get a paycheck, go to the local bar. They'd never see me again at work.
Mm-hmm.
What happened at this, and of course I had very little cash. And what ended up happening in 2015, 2015, my father passed away. And in 2016, I got a small inheritance. Now with that, I went and got an apartment right away. Mm-hmm. So I moved into this little 1-bedroom, and at the time I was dating a different girl who I had been with. In 2016, we had been together for about a year. Mm-hmm. We were talking about married, and we were talking about having kids, and we were planning the future. The only problem was she was a much harder drinker than I was.
Ooh.
We ended up staying together for about 3 years. And with her, now before her, I was just a beer drinker. Mm-hmm. I would occasionally shot or so. But with her, I would watch her drink vodka out of the bottle.
Ooh.
And whenever we would drink together, she would kind of push the vodka bottle into my face. And I would think, you know what, fine, let's do this. So I got a taste for that. So
yeah,
I guess my drinking advanced. Mm-hmm. And that relationship crashed after 3 years. It was just that it got to a point to where all we did was drink, fucking fight. That's all we did.
Yep.
And it would just more and more out of hand every time. It would just turn into yelling, and then she'd disappear into my room and call the police and say I was, that I was hitting her, and then in reality I'm in the living room, drinking.
Yeah.
So it just got nasty, and of course when you're not in your right state of mind, you're not thinking clearly, so it's very easy to exaggerate.
Yeah.
But the relationship did end. There was some infidelity, not on my part. And I've always said, I lost the girl, but I kept the habit. So what I would do, yeah. So I would, and at the point I had started doing freelance work, and I got into freelance work by, I started doing surveys online, and then I looked for other ways to make money online, and then, I would get these little writing jobs. I'm a writer. I actually went to college on a writing scholarship, so I found a way to make a bit of money off of that. So I would spend a couple days making a little bit of money, and then once I had $7 or $8, I'd go to the liquor store and buy a bottle of vodka, bottom shelf. Didn't matter. And I did that for a year or two. Mm-hmm. And then there were times where if I didn't have enough to buy my bottle of vodka, and I'm ashamed to admit this, but it is worthy. It is it's worth noting, just because if there's anyone out there who's listening and they're doing the same thing, I just want to think you're not the only one who's done this. Mm-hmm. But if I had 2 or 3 in my bank account, I'd go to the dollar store and I'd buy a bottle of mouthwash, and I would sip on that all day.
Ugh.
Oh yeah, it's awful. It is horrible. It kills your stomach.
I believe it.
Yeah. It's I don't want to get too vulgar, but it looks and smells the same way coming out as it does going in.
Ew.
Yeah.
Ooh.
It hurts.
Yeah.
It'll get you drunk.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what I did for a bit, and I thought I was doing okay. I was still in denial.
Mm-hmm.
I actually learned that mouthwash trick from the show Intervention. I never would have considered that.
Jeez.
But I saw it on that show. I got to try that. Which that really speaks volumes about your state of mind.
Yeah, your mental state. Yep. Oh, this guy's going through an intervention. Let me do what he did.
Yeah, exactly. But things kept getting worse. I would see my mom. My mom and I have always been close.
Mm-hmm.
We would see each other maybe, I don't know, a couple times a month. And I could tell just by the way she looked at me, she was worried because I was so skinny and, because I wasn't eating properly.
Yeah.
If I really was hungry, I'd go dumpster dive, Domino's down the street.
Mm.
But I did this for a bit, and I remember I got this job in 2018, late 2018. I got this really good job at a law firm, just doing intake for clients. If someone thought they had a case, they'd call the law firm. I was the one asking questions like, "Oh, so did this happen?" And I loved it. I absolutely loved this job.
Mm-hmm.
But I kept it for about a month. And, I got my paycheck. I was really happy with my paycheck. I went out on a Friday night, drank all weekend. I called them on Monday and said, hey, I always use the same excuse. My apartment flooded. And they said, okay, that's fine, but you absolutely have to be here tomorrow because there's an employee meeting. Everyone has to be here for it. So, of course, I didn't show up Tuesday. Got fired, and after this, I had a bit of a breakdown. My depression got even worse. So, I went and I bought a bottle. And I was sitting at home, and I was thinking, you know what? I would be better off dead. Mm-hmm. I would. There's no point in me being alive anymore. I'm a failure. All the things you go through, all those horrible things you think about yourself. Mm-hmm. So I was looking around my apartment thinking, okay, how do I want to do this? And then at the time I had just become a godfather. One of my closest friends, we've known each other since we were like 12 years old. I am son's godfather. I thought about him. Mm-hmm. And you know what? I cannot go through with this. So I called the hospital. I ended up spending 5 days in a mental hospital. Mm-hmm. I got out of there. They put me on some medication, which actually really helped me sleep. I wasn't sleeping when I was drinking. Yeah. I was passing out. You pass out. You do nothing but pass out for several years. I mean, it's doing damage to you. So the medication helped me sleep. But I got out of there, and just because I was feeling better, I stayed sober for, I don't know, about maybe a month. And I just started feeling that itch again, that pull. And I started looking up online, can I drink on this medication? And then I realized, well, you're supposed to drink in moderation. And I thought, okay, well, if I drink tonight, I just won't take the medication. But I went back to the habit for a few months. And I at this point, because I was feeling better, because I was getting some sleep, I was a little more clear-headed. Mm-hmm. And I really started thinking about what I was doing to myself. So I was having lunch with my mom one day, and she said, if you want to go back to rehab, I will find a place for you. Mm-hmm. I said, I appreciate it, but I don't think I'm going to go because, and my exact words were, I don't want to go back into a cage. And I used the mental hospital as my excuse. And I said, no, it's going to be just like the mental hospital. Mm. Just side note, but the mental hospital, I don't know if it was just this one or all mental hospitals, the food was absolutely incredible. So I ended up, I think I went, let's see, I stayed after that lunch with my mom.
Mm-hmm.
I went back home, and there was another week where I just kept in denial. I kept myself in denial, but I was really thinking, okay, maybe I do have a problem. And I'll never forget, I had been downtown with a couple friends, and as I was leaving to go back home, something said, you know what, just buy a bottle, no big deal. So I bought this bottle, I made it home, and I sat there looking at this. I'm sitting in my living room looking at the bottle, and I'm thinking, why did I do this? I don't even really want this.
Mm-hmm.
Took a couple sips off of it, and I shot my mom a text. And this was March 6th. Yeah, March 6th of 2019. Mm-hmm. I got this bottle, a couple sips, I shot a text to my mom, and I said, hey, do you have a rehab lined up? Because I want to go. And I told her, I just bought a bottle. I don't even really want it. I just, I want to go to rehab again. And she called them, and they came and picked me up March 7th. Then, of course, I drank half the bottle that night.
Yeah.
Went to bed, got up in the morning and said, you know what? This is my last ride. I'm gonna do this. So I polished off the bottle, went into rehab drunk, hit on the intake nurse right away. I guess I told her really personal things about me, which I didn't remember that I did until I saw her maybe 2 weeks into my treatment.
Uh-huh. And
she mentioned them again, just as kind of a joke. I'm like, oh shit, I completely forgot I told you that.
Yeah.
March 8th, I woke up in the rehab facility. March 7th was my first day in rehab. March 8th, I woke up sober. March 8th, 2019, and I spent 28 days there, and I haven't had a drink since.
Nice.
Life has been, when they say, you're going to live a life, beyond your wildest dreams. I mean, yeah, sure, you're not sitting on a beach with, in a mansion with supermodels or anything like that. But, I am living, a life I didn't think I would have. I mean, my first year sober, I was able to hold on to a job for more than, 2 weeks. I actually published a book. I bought a house and I got a girlfriend, all in here. And, I keep going with it. I take a second every day to be grateful for what I have, but to remind myself, if you take that one drink, you're going to lose all of this. Because I know how that tape plays out. That's where I am today. I mean, the 8th of this month, is that 19? Yeah, that's 19 months.
Yeah.
So I'll be coming up on 19 months. This is the most amount of time I've ever had. And I feel good. I've been off that medication for a while now. I try to exercise I quit smoking for the most part. I'll have a cigar every now and then, but I'm not smoking, almost a pack a day anymore.
Good.
Don't
look at me, Eric. Don't fucking look at me, Eric. I'm still smoking, so he can fucking judge me all he wants.
Smoking's bad, dude.
Thanks.
But yeah, that's where I'm at today.
All right.
Nice.
Fantastic. We definitely have some questions for you.
Sure.
I'm just going to go ahead and start, Eric. I'm not even going to ask you because you're a dick.
It's okay.
So, one thing that really, I don't know why it popped out tonight, because I've heard it a million times, but you talked about the quote unquote normal behavior of partying for teenagers. It's that's such a weird thing because you see it in movies all the time. It's just it's a high school thing. And I still think parents even have that mentality of I did it in high school. And it's why So my question is, like, how do we change the idea of quote unquote normal partying for teenagers and really look at it for what it is? And it's really like, it's kids using drugs. Like it's is the reality. So how do we change that?
Man,
it's a big question. I know.
I think it just has to start with the parents, you know.
Mm-hmm.
My current girlfriend and I, we're talking about kids, and this is up, and I can't speak for anyone else's kid, but I know with the kids, we want to have, we're going to sit down and talk to them and say, we understand that you're gonna want to go out and you're gonna want to experiment.
Mm-hmm.
These are the dangers of doing this. It's about education, and it's the same thing with my godson. His mom has been clean for I think like 8 years or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I've told her, once he gets older, we'll talk to him about it. If you want to experiment, that's one thing, but just know that this is a very dangerous thing you're doing. Your body, your brain, they're not developed. Just know that putting a substance in it constantly, you are going to change your brain chemistry. It's going to change everything about you.
Yep.
And probably not for the better. Not for the better at all.
Yeah. Yep. All right. What you got, Eric? Don't think too hard.
I was debating between two questions. Let's see. I think we'll go with the 5-year question, since you mentioned right before the end of your share that you bought a house, you published a book, and you and your girlfriend are looking at next steps, right, in the relationship. Recovery to a lot of people is a one day at a time thing, but with a life, you need to understand that in order to achieve things, we need to make plans. So what are some of the plans that you've kind of set for yourself, more in a recovery sense, over the next 5 years, or a life sense, like whatever, like what are some of your goals that you want to hit, like in recovery that also cross over into life?
Well, as far as recovery goes, I just want to stay sober. It is something I really do take one day at a time. And I mean, there have been times where I want to take it, you have to take it 1 minute at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Recovery goes, I don't think too far into the future, simply because this moment, this day is not guaranteed. I still get little craves to drink. I walk outside of my house, and people love to smoke weed in my neighborhood. I mean, I never really liked weed, but I see them drinking. I was out walking my dog earlier, and there were some girls out drinking what are those, twisted teas, and I still have those moments where I think like, oh man, that sounds really good.
Mm-hmm.
But I always take a step back, and I say, I have to take this 1 minute at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it gets easier with time, but it's never truly easy.
Yeah.
And as far as, and of course, I have to have that solid foundation in recovery before I can make any sort of life goals. And as far as 5 years, as far as recovery goes, I just want to be 5 years sober. I would like to have a couple sponsees. I'm not there yet because I'm still working through my steps.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the 10th step now.
Nice.
Yeah. The 9th step was, that was interesting.
Yep.
Yeah. Oof. I have one more. Oh no, I finished it. But as far as life goals, I've always wanted to do something in the arts, and because I got a book published right away. I mean, I self-published, but still, I have a book out there that's published. I want to continue that. Mm-hmm. I love writing. As far as the arts go, I've done a lot. I've acted, sang, played music, but at this point in my life, writing is where it's at.
Yeah.
I don't speak like a writer. I try not to. Yes, I don't know. But, as far as 5 years go, I would like to be married. Yeah. Plus, I don't think the girlfriend's going to want to be, a girlfriend for 5 years. I think after that amount of time, I'm pretty sure she's going to want a ring. Just guessing.
Yep. You usually.
Yeah. But as far as a career goes, that wouldn't be writing. Of course, that doesn't exactly pay the bills.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever job I'm doing, I just hope I'm enjoying it.
Yeah.
I start with the little things. Right now there isn't too much work out there, but I'll find something. Always do.
Yeah.
I've done so many jobs at this point. I honestly, I won't. Once things kind of open up and settle down, I'll be able to find a job anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I work in kitchens too. There's always a need for someone to work in a kitchen.
Oh, I just got out of the kitchen.
Yeah, that's a rough job, but I have a lot of experience in it. But yeah, my life goals, I'm just keeping it simple right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really it. Just write some more, get a couple books out there published, get married, and whatever job I'm doing, I hope I'm doing it well and I'm happy.
Nice. That's awesome. All right. You kind of you dabbled on it a little bit. One thing that always intrigues me, because and I think it intrigues Eric as well, because we are narcotic users. Drinking and drugs were parts of our stories, and so talking with the almost exclusive drinker. Why do you think your addiction never escalated towards narcotics, and why do you think you sort of stopped with drinking?
I've asked myself that several times, because I have used a lot, but nothing ever stopped.
Yeah.
I think it was just maybe because it made me feel. It was just. They all made me feel great, but it was, it was just having a couple drinks. I suddenly, alcohol for whatever reason was the only thing that just made me feel confident. It made me feel like, it was like I was just letting go of every little bit of shit I had going on in my life. Whatever shit I had going on with a girlfriend or with dad or with, whoever.
Yeah.
It was like taking a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
The other, they made me feel great, but I think it was just, they were a little too intense for me. I think it was just with drinking, it was much easier for me to gauge how I was feeling. 2 drinks will make me feel this way. 6 drinks will make me feel this way. 20 drinks will make me feel this way.
Yeah.
Maybe it was just that small element of control.
Ooh.
I don't know. It's a tough question.
Yeah, no, it's totally tough. And obviously, for anybody out there listening, it doesn't matter what you used. It's the reasons behind it that we try to get at here at Podcast Recovery. Yeah. We try to talk about those little things behind it, because it doesn't matter if you're a narcotic user or you strictly drink or strictly smoke pot. It's just interesting to me, because Eric and I really did a lot. So I was very much just a garbage head, just whatever you had, I was going to throw it in me. But it's just interesting to hear how the addiction manifests in other people, especially with other non-substance addictions like sex and gambling and gaming and porn and all that stuff. It's really interesting how we find ways to distract ourselves.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah.
What else you got, Eric? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Sean.
Sorry. I was going to say, I think with alcohol too. I think it was also just the experiences I would have.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've always been the type of I've always liked people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because it's so socially acceptable to drink. You can walk into a bar with a bunch of people you don't know, and you walk out with 10 new best friends. You end up at someone's house. You end up in a weird situation. I've been in situations, with narcotics where it's just tense. It's like, what?
Oh yeah, I'm glad it didn't escalate to that for you, because it's a different ball game for sure.
It really is. Like, you get in a car with someone and it's like, why does this guy have a gun? Oh, okay, that's right. I forgot what we're going to pick up right now.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I think I don't know, maybe like the whole Cheers mentality gave the whole American society just like a different take like the bar. Like it really glorified a lot of shit. Like that, I think that was really probably like the first like mass like produced show where it was literally a show just about barflies. That's all it was. It really was.
The ironic thing was,
but like the opening music was just like so happy and calming. It's just like, where everybody knows your name, and you're like, oh, I'm really comforted by that. Yeah. Dun, dun, dun. And like that's weird.
And the ironic thing was Ted Danson's character was sober.
Whose was? Ted Danson's?
Ted Danson.
Yeah, and he was the bartender, right?
Yeah, he was bartender. He was sober.
Huh. That's very weird. Very bizarre. All right, what do you got, Eric?
I've been rewatching it.
Yeah, I think we need to all go back and watch Cheers.
All right, so
I lost my spot.
So you said you're on step 10?
Yeah, step 10.
All right, so you haven't done all 12, but on the 10 that you've done so far.
Okay, Eric. I see what you're doing.
I'm taking yours.
You're a dick.
I'm really taking mine. It was originally mine.
Okay.
And then you took it.
All right, I made it better.
So there's a bus going 65
Oh
down
my
the
God, this is horrible. No, you cannot do this.
So you only can choose one step. Which step so far has been your favorite? And why?
My favorite? Oh, man. Man, that's a good one. Let's see. They each have their own merits. They all have their own difficulties.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as masochistic as masochistic as this may sound, I actually enjoyed step 9. Just because there's so much to get off your chest.
Yeah.
But there's also step 1, which is just liberating in itself. And same with step 4, making the moral inventory.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I can pick a favorite.
Oh.
You know what? Maybe step 9 because as an alcoholic, I've always craved some sort of excitement, and I think step 9 because I didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah.
It was exciting. It was random, and at times it was chaotic.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great answer. There's no wrong answer.
Yeah, there's no wrong answer. Yeah, that was just that was a curveball.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna go. I think we're in the lighthearted part of the show right now. So I'm gonna go with my fun question. So this is totally a fun question. As somebody who has lived on both the East and West Coast, what do you find since clearly you have found your place on the East Coast? What do you find weird about people on the West Coast?
I don't understand surfer culture. I just don't. I don't understand the word they're saying too.
Yeah.
There's
Bro, it's just so laid back, dude. Like you need to learn how to just go with the waves, man.
I can't. Yeah, they had their own slang, and it was.
Oh, I know.
I couldn't understand a fucking word that was said.
No, totally. Like, and keep going. Was that it?
Oh no. I mean, I think I would have enjoyed the West Coast a little bit more had I not been in the military, just because I would have had more freedom to kind of explore.
Yeah.
My area a little bit more. I mean, I got to see a little bit, but yeah. I mean, I was really stuck to the base, and the closest town was this tiny town that I think if it wasn't for the military base, I think there'd probably be like less than 100 people who lived there.
Wow.
But they had 4 bars or something?
Of course,
yeah. I mean, what else are you gonna do?
Yeah, it's where everybody knows your name.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, and like me as an East Coast guy, and don't be offended, all our West Coasters out there. We do love you and we appreciate you. We're just sharing.
We do love you.
We're sharing our preferences. My thing with visiting the West Coast, I just don't understand why they walk so slow. I just can't deal with it. Like walking around San Francisco and just everybody's just moving at like they're in like first and second gear, and I'm in my full Maryland third, fourth gear. I'm just like, walk like you fucking have a purpose. Get the fuck out of my way. I was like, I got shit to do, dude.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I never made it to San Francisco, though. I think the furthest north I got was San Luis Obispo.
Okay. Yeah, and Northern California and Southern California are two different places entirely. Like it is pretty crazy. It is.
I'm a big soccer fan, so if I had some time, I'd drive into LA and watch the Galaxy play.
Nice.
Yeah, that was fun. I had a lot of fun with that.
Hell yeah, that's awesome. All right, Eric.
All right, so with the change in recovery currently happening with different fellowships and Zoom and online meetings and online communities blossoming, recovery is something that we have at our fingertips more now than ever. So what makes up your recovery? Like, what are the different aspects that you use for your recovery?
I'm always in contact with someone. I haven't, since I've been in my house, I moved to a different neighborhood. So my home group is, I don't drive at the moment. I just started driving again. My girlfriend is kind enough to let me drive her car. She's trusting me enough to drive her car. Mm-hmm. But I've been using public transportation, and to get to my old neighborhood, it takes maybe with walking and waiting for the bus, it can take an hour to get there, even though it's maybe 2 or 3 miles away. Mm-hmm. But I've been doing Zoom meetings. I actually chaired a meeting last Friday. So I'm usually in touch with people from that clubhouse. I screw around on Twitter a little too much, but I've been following people who are in recovery, and I've actually made some friends who live all over the country, and I've made some friends who live in different countries. And, the good thing about that is because of the different time zones, if I really need to reach out and talk to someone, I can shoot them a text and someone's... so I'm always in contact with someone else who's in recovery. My mother has done some research. I can talk to her if I need to, but I'm not going to wake her up at 2 a.m. though. My girlfriend's always there for me. My sponsor's one phone call away. So I do Zoom meetings when I can. That sounds like I never go to them. Mm-hmm. I go to them relatively often. I'm trying to get to them a little bit more, just because I've been slacking. Mm-hmm. That's another thing. Keep myself accountable. I have to remind myself that I'm in recovery. It's not something that takes a break. it's just kind of, I mean, I think that's really it. Just reminding yourself in recovery and just being disciplined enough to, not disciplined, but being aware of yourself and what you're feeling, to know, like, hey, I need to reach out. I need to talk to someone. I need to get to a meeting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's what I've been doing. But like I said, I got lazy for a little bit. So I'm getting back into it.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. My final question of the evening will be really kind of describe the feeling when you finally accepted you had a problem, and that final surrender, and how much of like a springboard that was for the future of your recovery.
Oh man, it was the biggest weight. But I'm sure plenty of people have said that before, but I mean, it really is just the biggest weight lifted off of your shoulders, off your chest.
For sure, man.
It did take me, a few sips off of a bottle of vodka to say, yeah, I have a problem. So even then, even though I was already on my way to getting, I wasn't drunk yet, but I definitely wasn't sober. That just, I don't know. It was just that I really felt like, I really felt like I was pushing the reset button on my life. And I remember waking up in rehab, the first sober day in rehab. I remember feeling, and this might sound silly, this might sound, cliche, but if it does, it does. But the sun felt brighter.
Yeah.
Even though it was cold as hell outside, everything felt warmer. Colors, and as I stayed sober longer, colors felt more vivid. And I remember music sounded different. That was the one thing I really noticed. That's something I always keep in mind. I always remind myself of that feeling, because I don't want to lose that.
Yeah.
I never want to lose that. I just remind myself of it all the time.
Nice.
And as a musician too, I like the way music sounds. I don't want to go back to everything's kind of dull when you're messed up all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. All right.
Yeah.
Well, you're out of questions, Eric?
I'm out of questions.
All right. I am out of questions as well. So, all right. We would like to thank you, Sean, for joining us this evening.
Woo! Yeah!
Thank you guys for having me. Yeah.
Absolutely, man. And we want to give you one quick minute to talk to anybody out there who's struggling, coming back from a relapse, trying to find that last surrender, and needs to hear a message of hope. What do you have to say to them?
Oh man, keep your head up. You might feel like shit now. You might be hating yourself at the moment, but it does get a lot better.
Yep.
Just keep your head up. Don't be afraid. And if there's not someone, if you're in a situation where you don't feel like you can reach out to anyone, like an immediate family member, just know that there is a sober community that will cheer you on, even if we don't know you. Yeah, just keep your head up. We're here for you. And we know it's tough. We've done it. We've walked it. We walked that road. I mean, some of us multiple times. We know what you're going through. We know what you're feeling. And if you feel like you're a bad person, trust me, you're not.
Yep.
Especially if you start going into the rooms, you hear some crazy stuff. There is absolutely no judgment. None whatsoever.
Yep.
And if I ever meet you in person, I'll be the first one to give you a hug.
Awesome. Perfect. Love it. All right, Sean, you are officially off the hot seat, my man.
All right, cool.
All right. So here at Podcast Recovery, we are aiming to expand the scope of support for recovering addicts. Accessibility and convenience of helpful services is paramount to combating addiction. We work to bring the message of recovery to every addict, wherever and whenever it is needed. We believe that a powerful voice of recovery should be obtainable, practical, and at the touch of a button. Every addict deserves to hear a message of hope, and Podcast Recovery is here to provide it. All right, everyone, I'm going to turn it over to Eric for our media statement.
So here at Podcast Recovery, we are fully self-supporting, and we need your help to keep the mics on.
Yeah. Oh,
and,
I like that.
You like that one?
I like
you
that.
Like that?
That was very organic.
So, if you would like, please join our home group, which is at our Patreon page in the description below, or throw some money in the digital basket with our Venmo or PayPal accounts. And please, like, subscribe, follow, comment, review.
Coffee down the wrong tube.
Don't do that, but do everything I just said. And, and that, my goodness, are you okay?
I had coffee go down the wrong tube. I'm sorry.
It's fine. First off, it's too late for coffee.
It's not too late for coffee.
It's 8:15 in the evening.
Yeah. What's the problem?
Wild. But please like, subscribe, and do all that sort of shit with YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and anywhere else that I might not have mentioned.
Absolutely. And for more information about Eric, Carly, Allie, and myself, go to podcastrecovery.com. But most importantly, everybody out there, stay safe and stay clean.